The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, inspired by some of the quirkiest dogs you can ever imagine and the owners who love them. This podcast is brought to you by the quirky couple themselves, Scott and Jess Williams. Their aim is to educate and entertain. Here's Scott and Jess.
Welcome, guys, and happy Wednesday. We are the Quirky Dog Podcast, as you well know, and we have a very special guest here today. But first, we're going to start with the quirky tip of the day.
Let me get the pig.
Yep, we got the pink pig because we're representing those females.
So we're going to be talking about Pitbulls here primarily today, and my tip would be if you have a Pitbull or a bully breed, that you get a weighted vest and get some exercise with them on a weighted vest just to burn a little bit of that energy off. It just to maybe tone them down, maybe just one notch.
If your pit bull is fit and you can incorporate that safely, weighted vest.
If he's already fat, don't start with the vest. Just
all
walk
right.
him.
Today we have this awesome pit bull sport dog trainer from California. She's really just a badass bitch, and she's one of Scott's oldest and dearest friends. So Leri Hanson, welcome so much, and thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to be here.
I want to say real quick, you're the very first working dog person I met.
Oh, I have you to blame.
And I met you at the Schutzen Club in Long Beach, I think it was. And I showed up there and you said, "Nice to meet you. Membership is closed." But you're welcome to watch. Then I thought, wow, she's kind of
this working dog world.
She's kind of strong. And
not a lot has changed as far as I like to keep the club numbers low.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's a good way with these clubs to find out who's serious. Are people going to keep coming? Are they easily discouraged? Because it's a huge commitment.
And look at you now.
I know. I got sucked in.
Yeah, you guys.
I should have taken your advice and just walked away at that
no,
point.
that's why I said I have her to blame now that I know it was Larry. And you guys went on to, you guys did all breed ringers with Adrian for a while, right? Like the three of you? That was like.
Yeah, and that club.
You had your own damn club after that. So thanks for letting him in the club.
Yeah, well, Larry, you're responsible. You're the one that said, you called me and said, "Hey, let's get together and start a little club and all that." And it really. Go ahead.
Sorry, Scott. What I remember is seeing you at a Waleed seminar in Arizona, and you were there with, what was his name, the dog aggressive one? Loco?
Yes. That was the Schutzen dog, yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And you said, "Hey, let's work dogs sometime." And that's how we started connecting once we got back to California.
Right. Yeah, I know.
You started going down to Philippe's for a long time to learn how to work dogs.
Yeah. Did we drive to Arizona together with Feather, or was that another one we did? Because we got to know each other well on that long drive. I mean, I learned a lot of personal stuff about you on that drive, and you about me.
Yeah. That I think it was that trip. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So Arizona to California, there's a ton of history here. And the working dog thing, I mean, we're not actively competing in it anymore, but you still are, right, Larry? I mean, you have. I'm
trying to. I took a couple of years off and now I'm just starting to come back now. I have been handling a really cool French Ring 3, Campaign 3 German Shepherd bitch with one of the clubs that I currently belong with, Jean-Luc and Bethany at PH Canine.
Yeah. Nice.
Just to kind of get my feet back into it again. So, and then, I have some other dogs that I'm bringing up, hoping, fingers crossed.
Yeah, cool.
That was the club that hosted the trial that I went out to with Cousteau, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. It was them. Yeah, I think so. All right, so let's talk about pit bulls because that's really like Larry's claim to fame. And ironically, for those of you who don't know, outside of this German Shepherd she has now and the Malinois she's competed with, Larry has been extremely successful in French Ring with American Pitbull Terriers, which is a huge feat.
Yeah, and Schutzen too, right?
Yeah.
You started in Schutzen, I think, right?
Started in Schutzen, and I wouldn't say extremely successful. Thank you for that, Jess. But I reached my goals. Success, in my opinion, as far as a sport dog, is a dog who competes at a high level, at a competitive high level on a regular basis with good passing scores. And I didn't necessarily have that. If I could get a passing score, I was, thank goodness that I can mark that one off the bucket list.
But am I correct in thinking that you had the first or second pit bull to get a ring 3 on a pit bull?
Cassie, right? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's no small feat.
That's success, Larry. Let's.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. But it's an off-breed, and that's why you were so adamant about the name. You want it to be all-breed ringers because there's a lot of snobbery in these different sports. You can't do this sport with anything but this breed, and
right.
And I even regretted originally when I came to you, I had the English Mastiff when I went to the Schutzen Club. And everyone said, you can't do anything with that. You need to go get a Shepherd. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I got to get? And in retrospect, I'm sure I could have competed with that dog because
she probably could have had better control.
Well, I mean, obviously she wouldn't have been a high-level dog, but she loved to bite, and she was very enthusiastic about work. And I just didn't pursue that because I wanted to do, and it was an ego thing. I wanted to do what was right, what's best, what's the best dog, because I wanted to have success, which goes back to it. For me, in the beginning, there was a lot of ego involved. I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to look incompetent. And I wanted the best chance I possibly could have of actually competing. But then, after doing it for several years, I felt I didn't really care about all of that side of it. And then I took the Border Collie and was able to actually go and do a brevet with the Border Collie, which is not the typical dog, but it was fun,
If we could train with Patrice, if we moved and we trained with Patrice all the time, we'd probably get a 2 on the damn Border Collie. It's just,
I imagine
it's just hard. So tell us, how long have you been with the breed, the Pitbulls? Like how long, and how did this passion start? And just give us a little background on your origin here.
Okay. So I took care of a dog. It was half pit bull, half black lab for a friend for about a year, but she looked like a pit bull, but she had the temperament of a lab. She still had some fire too. So I kind of started thinking, this is a really neat dog. She was a wonderful dog. And then my husband had a pit bull when we started dating. He was a tough dog, very aggressive dog.
Yeah.
My husband was not super responsible. I mean, we were kids at the time, and he was not super responsible with him. And then when we actually decided to commit to each other, he says, well, we got to get our own, because that one lived at his mom and dad's house. And so I got Fraser, and Fraser was Rosie's father. And Fraser we got out of the Penny Saver. If you remember back in the day, Scott, it was a free magazine.
Yeah.
$250 for a UKC registered old family red nose, and he was a good dog. He was a really good dog, and raised our kids up with him, and went on to do some breedings with him later on. But Annetta Cheek in Virginia, she had a very well-known Schutzen 3 bitch named Cheek's Red Baroness, and Tom and Holly Rose had done the training on her and had competed her at nationals a couple times. And so she was tracing lineage and came back to me knowing that I did competition obedience, but I didn't know about sport work at the time. So when she contacted me, she asked if she could arrange to have him tested before she committed to breeding. And that's how I met Al Banuelos as well, too. And he was my first, still is my mentor, but one of my first mentors in the sport world. And when I saw this female and she says, have so-and-so handle her and put her through her paces so you can see what she does, I was sold. I'm like, it was just incredible. I couldn't imagine a pit bull having that type of control and power and stability and all things good. So I wanted to do that also. So that's kind of how
I'm all about it. Look at her with her strong female pit bulls and strong female.
You were real lucky to know Al and still know Al. And I had the good fortune of working with him a few times. And what a great guy, too. What a nice guy. Yeah. And just an amazing talent,
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on this sex thing real quick, because it's funny. I've been talking to Noelle, and Noelle's like, well, it's a Mal, and I love pit bulls. I'm like, well, maybe you just like boys too, because I am a female, dog person, right? And Scott's like, you and your girls. So tell me a little bit about that, because it was interesting even hearing that you guys had gotten a male together and then you got this female, and I know Cassie was successful. So do you have a preference there for your own self personally with the breed as far as sex goes?
Yeah, that's great, Jess. I didn't know I did, because I started with males,
Yeah.
I mean, Frazier, and then Goose and Capone, Rommel. But I've had the most success with the females.
Yeah.
So
Well, they're
now
smarter.
I look for females.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find a good one.
Yeah, it is. Do you find that they're more independent, or do you think they just have more tenacity? Like, what is it about them, do you think? Or is it just kind of luck of the draw, do you think?
I think it's kind of luck of the draw, but one of the things I really like about the name of your podcast too is like Cassie, she was quirky, like super, super quirky. Rosie, who was my first Schutzen dog, she was very serious, a little bit aggressive, and not just with other dogs, but she wasn't like super social with people. But yeah, I don't know. It's I used to think I knew a little bit about dogs, and the older I get and the more dogs I'm around, the more
we know
I
nothing.
realize-
We know nothing. Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Every day is a brand new day, right?
I'm the least qualified person in the room.
And not that, but when today's training, the innovation that has come out of, I guess a lot of it has to do with the internet and social media and all of that as well. But I think back now when I watch the training today and the online classes I've taken and the seminars I've gone to, and I'm kind of blown away. And I think, how on earth did I ever even get a dog titled in the past?
Yeah.
It's actually a little intimidating now if you're trying to stay, up to date with, what people are doing today and, the positive movement, which I love. Because that's not how my dogs were taught. Scott, it was.
Well, I have no idea what you're talking about. No, I know. I saw, I was introduced to the electric collar early on and saw so many good things you could do with it that I started to think, well, you can do anything with it. And that may or may not be true, but there's certainly other ways of doing it that are a lot easier on the dog and have less fallout and things like that, So all the tools have a place, and if you want to be a good dog trainer, you should know how to use all of them so you can grab whatever you need.
Agreed.
And like you're saying, keep learning, right? I mean, like you're still expanding that toolbox. Like if we're not staying up to date with the new stuff, like we're not evolving as trainers, and that's to the detriment of our dogs, really.
Totally agree.
I was going to say, go ahead, Larry.
No, I was just going to mention the other thing that has become a high priority for me is, and this is with pet or sport, is the dog's emotion.
Yes.
It's really
dogs don't have emotion. Oh my God. Like when that argument happens, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to close my computer. But it's true. It is. So explain that a little bit, where you're coming from.
Well, just coming from, an initial background of, I do agree dogs are dogs. And I want them to behave, and they don't have to be social. A lot of dogs aren't social and still can be kept safely, in neighborhoods or in society in general. But, the dogs have a really short life compared to ours. And if they're constantly crated or constantly yanked and cranked or always under the thumb, that's a really tough life. And it's just, in my opinion, not a good life.
Yeah.
I know there are some dogs that are so hard. Those ones should be at police departments, or military, because then they can really express who they are without being reprimanded for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, I guess I'm getting soft in my old age.
Well,
Scott is too. Are you kidding?
I feel the same way. And it's like, it's also a tremendous amount of stress that's not even necessarily perceived on the part of the owner. You remember that dog Dutch that I had? He was a handful, and I was all enthusiastic about working him, and I made some decent progress with the dog. But I didn't realize until I sold him how much headspace that dog took up every second of my waking life. Where is that dog? Who is he with now? Where am I going to keep him if I do this?
Where are my 3 young children
Yeah.
while I'm loading him into the car? Like all of that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You know, I only had one pit bull that was kind of like Dutch in a way, and I didn't get her till she was older. And actually, it was a Capone daughter, a litter mate to Wes, the co-own that I have with Hai Trong. I got her older. She had a little incident. She had a little bite incident. They were looking to move her. She went to Jonathan Katz first because the owner
Chicago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then when I saw her on social media, I'm like, oh, wow, you've got Nala. And looking at her work, looking at her do some bite stuff, I'm like, gosh, I missed the boat. You know, when I didn't get that call in time, Jonathan says, Leri, she's yours if you want her. So bless his heart, we arranged and got her here. And I gave her, I gave her all the tools that I had at that time, you know, clicker and toy and gentle, and I just tried really hard.
You got more tools than that, Leri. Come on. But go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
And I just, she broke me. I just couldn't reach her.
Yeah.
Could be good at home or in a very quiet environment, but in my opinion, she was never going to be trustworthy of being a competition dog. And in fact, Patrice, he saw her.
Yeah.
You know, he worked her a little bit as well. And he says, at her age, it could be tough.
Yeah.
And he was just being nice. I'm sure he was saying, no way, it's not going to happen. So yeah, those tough dogs, it's hard. You know, we learn a lot from them though.
Yeah.
Huh?
But
That's
I want to talk about that because this is truly why Scott respects you from so many different, dimensions, knowing you for so many years. But I think the fact that you are so responsible with the breed is something that's so important. So while you were saying that you had this dog that you didn't think would be safe for competition, like what does that mean to you? Because this is now saying like, even if you could have, won the championships with this dog, that wasn't worth it to you because there was risk. So what were the concerns with maybe putting a dog like that into competition?
Well, she was like 4 years old when I got her. And I think you miss out obviously on a whole lot of proper imprinting and nurturing. And she had a strong interest in other animals, not just dogs, but anything that moved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the deal breaker for me was, I had a dog here that I had bred, and I had somebody coming over to do an in-home ultrasound to see if she was pregnant or not. And I said, hold on a second, let me put this dog up. And the lady came with her child, and the dog got super excited. She looked at the child as this infant as a prey object. And I do have grandchildren.
Right.
And they're a little bit older now, but at the time I'm like, well, here's the other thing too, to be quite frank, I'd load her up, I'd take her to training, and I'd work the other dogs, and I really had to find it it was almost like going to battle. I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and get Nala out.
Yeah.
I had to be so on point with her, because if I'll tell you this too. So when I sent her back, we had ground transportation come and get her. And I don't know why I didn't mention it. I just assumed, the guy had the proper setup, and he stuck her in a wire crate. I didn't even think about it. It was like 2:00 in the morning when he picked her up. And she ended up, when they had on one of the stops, airing out the dog, she busted out of the crate and got one of the other dogs that they were just airing. And that was just the type of dog she was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
If I take a dog to compete, first of all, it's very important to me that nobody on the field, any stewards, deputy judges, exhibitors, I don't want to have to worry about them getting bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
And not only people, but like, I'm toying around with the idea of going Schutzen with this young pit bull I have. And his temperament shows me that if he makes it, he should be perfectly fine. But I don't want to chance my dog breaking along down and going after the working dog. In fact, I just saw that earlier this year at the regional, and it was like a Doberman and a Shepherd, but the long down dog broke and went after, and they separated it real quick, and then they went on about their business. And I remember kind of chuckling to myself, and I mentioned it to a couple people. Oh, it's a good thing that wasn't one of our dogs, right? Because we were bulldog people, because that would have been the talk of the town.
Yeah, of course.
For sure.
And it would have taken a little more time to separate them too.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Probably.
Let's touch on this a little bit, because, people get a real big bug up their butt as far as, pit bulls and aggression and all breeds are the same, and, BSL and everything else. So kind of explain to us where you come from when you look at the breed and how they maybe aren't necessarily like other breeds and they're not just dogs. And tell us a little bit about how preserved, this specific dog that you're looking for, that's probably being bred and, ending up in different areas and rescue too. We get so many pit bulls that all of a sudden are having puppies and we don't know. Like, tell us how important the American Pitbull Terrier really is to you, if that makes sense.
Well, I come from, and it's from the school of hard knocks, but I've learned over time that even if your pit bull is really friendly and you take it to dog beach or you take it to dog park or you go on pack walks and everything goes okay. To me, it's a little disrespectful to the breed, because what can happen is you get really comfortable in that place, and then you have an incident, and then you're all upset because the dog acted like what he is. So I'm a big advocate for, like, the little pit bull group that I've been doing on Saturdays. When new people come out, I tell them they need to bring a crate, and it's not a socialization class. And although we may bring all the dogs out as a group, they're never to make contact. Now, I've changed that just a little bit. If they're really young, like, under 6 months, and they're showing the right stuff, maybe we'll practice some recalls. We let them kind of go in and bounce around, call them back. But I don't, and I'm sure, and I've gotten this. There are people that go, well, maybe you just don't have the right dog, or maybe you haven't put the right training in, because they can be great with other dogs. And I agree. Like, mine have been pretty darn good with my own pack, and certain dogs that we've traveled with on a regular basis. But I just don't trust them unsupervised, and sometimes even supervised. So I always discourage people from doing dog parks and even if and I don't walk my own dogs that often, but if I have young dogs in and they need to just experience the world and I go for a walk in the neighborhood, I avoid the blocks that have the pit bulls. I love the breed, but when I see them barking behind the fence, I know that they can get through that fence if they want to.
Sure.
And during holidays, generally kids are home, and doors are left open and gates unlatched. And so I don't like dog fights. I really don't like dog fights at all.
And is it your belief that pit bulls can cause more damage than other breeds?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Noelle, Noelle is she's an incredible human, but as a trainer, she's just really phenomenal. What she has done with her dogs. And I know she's had a couple squabbles and she's worked it out, but like Rifle, that dog was on a chain, for the few years, and she's gone out there and he's so focused on her and clear. He did not lose an ounce of what he is. Yeah. He's a game bred American Pitbull Terrier from a very old, established, respected bloodline. And she connected with him. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Yes.
You really have to have that connection and that responsibility and mutual respect. Dog to you, you to dog.
Yeah.
You really got to know what they're capable of and be prepared to help them not get in trouble.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely.
I can remember, back when we were training together, how you had a zero tolerance for dog aggression, human aggression, off the field with your dogs. And if you saw that kind of stuff, you would kind of come to a stop with that dog, and that would be it. That'd be it. You made sure that the dogs you worked were going to be, behaved appropriately in all situations, to the best of your ability. And if they weren't capable of that, you didn't put any more training into them, especially biting training. You're not going to be teaching a dog to bite that is dangerous, potentially dangerous,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that too. And, it's funny, when I first got started, I don't know, this is how I perceive it anyway. The dogs I had, they had a little edge to them. And I thought that edge was needed in order to do sport work. I thought they had to have that. But then as I continued on and met other people and their dogs, and I realized that, well, for example, one particular dog that I was really determined to get a pup from, and I did. If you looked at this little dog, and she was this gal's service dog too, she went on planes and restaurants everywhere with her, constant companion, a little thing put together with junk parts, not very pretty, very almost timid in a way, but on the field, fire.
Yeah.
Absolute fire. And I'm like, wow, you really can have it all.
Yeah.
So, the funny thing is, back then I had the dogs with a little bit of edge, but they bit. Now I'm kind of going a different path with the dogs that I'm selecting. And now I'm kind of waiting for them to see if they're going to bring a little bit of fire to the field. The temperaments are solid, people loving, good food drive, good toy drive, little bit of prey drive, bite the rag a little bit. But I don't know if they're strong enough, to stand up to a man in a blind, or with a stick, with a gun.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a lot more patience the way you're working now. And when I was newer in this, I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to invest in a dog for a year to find out it just really doesn't have what it takes. I wanted a dog coming out of the chute, biting everything, and I got what I prayed for, and it was not always a blessing. It was not always a good thing. It was a friggin' hassle, And a lot of people in the sport we were doing, again, I can only say it's this macho ego where people love to see a dog that was like really almost like a wild animal that they could actually get a title
that they can
on.
pass.
So everyone would say, "Oh my God, that!"
And then everybody wants to breed to that dog.
Yeah, and the dog is not good for sport. You've just barely worked within the parameters to get the title, and the dog is not social, and it's a lot of headache. And it's fun to see somebody else have that dog, as long as, but to own one is a lot of work, And
like Larry's saying, it's not necessarily responsible for
No,
the
it
sport.
isn't. And the people that do well in dog sports, they shy away from those dogs immediately. Everyone that does really well, they get a dog that is compliant, that works with them, that they know what they're dealing with, and because they want to actually do well. It's not this big thing about I can tame a lion. Watch me do this,
Yeah, but you know what, Scott? I think we've all kind of gone through that. We didn't want to wait. We wanted that strong dog, and they had to show us something early on so we could continue and progress and get on the field as soon as possible. But you're absolutely right. So many of the people, including Al, like he liked the monsters. He had American Bulldogs, and they were tough dogs. And, he's gotten to a place in his head and heart too, where, there's you're looking for balance there. And talking about wasting a year on a dog, I got 2 pups at the same time, a little over 2 years ago, and one washed relatively early, like at 6 months. The other one I held on to a year and a half. And I was kind of determined I was going to make this work. And I'm going to tell you something kind of funny. I could get really good obedience with her at home, and if there was nobody around. But when I would get to the field, and this was a dog I was trying to do Schutzen with Al, Al says, Larry, every time you step on the field to do obedience with her, she's not there. She wants to go visit. She's looking and she's distracted. And I go, yeah, I said, but I'm more worried about the bite work. And the bite work was coming along okay. Yeah, she wasn't too bad there. And he says, well, what about the obedience? And I'm like, I can always force it if I need to. And he goes, not always. And coming from Al, that was kind of a big thing, because Al's come a long way as well too, but he still falls back on the older stuff. And so for him to tell me, with this dog who'd been shaped for pretty much the first year of her life. Then I started putting a little more pressure on her. And he says, not always. And that really stuck with me as we progressed. And not only that, but this dog didn't like me. She liked everybody else way better.
And that's the connection thing you're talking about, that, and if you don't have it, recognizing that is better almost for you and for her. And I want to bring up this comment that you made when we were talking before we started. You said, if I wasn't competing, I probably wouldn't own the breed anymore. And can you just kind of unpack that a little bit more for our viewers and listeners so they understand where you're coming from?
Sure. The old man and I, we're not getting any younger, and eventually we're going to be downsizing, and we have these grandkids that we're very active with. And so we just want to, we want to have animals and keep animals that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
And
we hear you, sister. We're with you.
Yeah.
I think we'll always have some type of bulldog because we both fancy them. And I have a little Staffy bull that I was blessed with by a good friend, Joe Fang. And she's a lot of fun. She is hopefully going to be going for her brevet in January. Wonderful with the kids. She's a little bit bossy with the other dogs, but it's more noise than anything. And my husband says, why didn't we get one of these years ago? I know Noelle has one also.
Yeah, I think her daughter. I think it's her daughter's.
Yeah. And several other people too that, and I've seen them and I see the videos on social media, and I just never really gave them a whole lot of my attention until I had one. And now I'm like,
this is kind of fun. This is easy. Easier.
Really fun dogs.
Yeah.
And the pit bull dogs, I'm not saying they can't be good pets. They can be, but they're a very big responsibility. Any dog is a big responsibility, as you know, but certain breeds are even more so.
Yeah, Mals and pit bulls kick you into the next level. For sure.
And Jag Terriers, by the way.
Oh, God, you got one of those too. We had Shorty. Oh, my God.
I was going to say, before I forget, I remember we were working Capone one time, and I had the suit on, and he's just digging into my leg. And I said, Larry, out your dog. And you're like, oh, no, let him bite. He's really getting in there. He's really looking good. And I said, out your dog for me. And she finally outs the dog. And I take my pants off. I got 4 big holes in my calf. And you're like, oh, let me get my camera. Quick, let me.
You guys are crazy. All right, I got one more final question here for Larry because we got her on. All right, tell me the best way that we can service the preserved American Pitbull Terrier breed today and moving forward. Like, what is the best thing that we can do as a society for this breed, do you think?
I think you should get a license to have one of those.
Yeah, it's like a gun now.
Half joking.
Education. And I think the internet has allowed us to do more of that. The internet is wonderful on one hand and horrible on another because you get extremes on both sides. But I really think education, and again, I'm going to put this with any breed, not just the pit bull. I am not really happy about the number of pit bull dogs that are being bred. I think when people are really responsible and just breeding for their family and friends, themselves, that's one thing. But when you see them advertised, and these are oftentimes responsible, show quality breedings, so they are promoting them. They're doing all the testing, they're doing all the showing so they can advertise them in Dog World or etc. But I'll tell you this, like the majority of people that are working their pit bull dogs, they have a list of people that are currently training or trying to train a pit bull dog that's waiting for that. You don't see them advertising.
Yeah.
They don't need to advertise. So there's a big difference between the show, the work, and the traditional bred dogs. So
and we're seeing so many in rescue, so many of different mixes and stuff, and there's real pit bull genetics heading into rescue, and that's heartbreaking too. You know what I mean? It's not fair to the breed at all.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing with the working Malinois, where when I see breeders that are breeding good strong Malinois advertising these dogs on Pet Finder and all these different places, it's crazy because
Craigslist,
all kinds of different places. And
if you don't have a list of people that want your dogs, you shouldn't be breeding your dogs.
I think you don't know who you're selling the dog to, and just because someone says I have a fenced yard, and I'm
they need more than that.
Yeah, I just
and if I can add too, because this one hits kind of close to home, if you are a breeder of any particular breed, and you sell your dog, for me, at any point in that life, if it doesn't work out, I'll take him back.
Yes, that is responsible breeding.
I'm not saying I'm going to buy him back, but I'll take him back. Now, if it's a health issue or something like that, I'll make it right for you. But
you were responsible for bringing that dog here, and that dog's your responsibility in a certain way. So no, I appreciate that.
And that's why I don't breed. Because I feel the same way as you.
Dogs.
I don't want any dogs back.
Larry, thank you so much, not only for everything that you do in the breeding world, but for Pitbulls and for everything you've given to training. And I guess for even getting my husband started on the path, because if he wasn't into dogs, I would never have found him. So thank you truly. I mean, Larry does more for the dog world than I can even explain in 4 podcasts, really.
Yeah, we didn't even get into the judging you've done, and internationally.
You're just such a badass. Yeah. Just thank you, really, for being a badass, and thank you for what you do. And thank you for your honesty and your time, because it is important to not just fluff up a breed just to fluff them up. Like, we have to be authentic in what we see. Border Collies are strong dogs. Mals are strong dogs. Pitbulls are strong dogs. Own what if you want something, own what you own.
Know what you have.
Yeah, know what you have is even better.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Have a great rest of December, guys. We have a few more episodes left. We're going to have Dog of the Year, the very last episode of 2021. And in the meantime, keep it quirky.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.